The Strength in Breaking: How Vulnerability Rewrites Black Women's Power. Welcome. For generations, we've been told a powerful lie about strength. That lie says the strongest among us are those who never break, never bend, never show weakness. It's a lie that has particularly burdened Black women, whispering that our value lies in our ability to endure silently, to carry impossible weights without complaint, to be the rock that never cracks. Today, I want to shatter that lie completely. I'm LeAnne Dolce, pronounced Dolce, and I recently had the extraordinary privilege of sitting down with Yolanda McGregor, a visionary whose work has fundamentally transformed how we understand strength, resilience, and leadership among Black women. Yolanda isn't just a thought leader, she's a revolution in human form. Her groundbreaking advocacy has created pathways for thousands of Black women to step into leadership roles while maintaining their full humanity. Her courage in sharing her own journey through trauma to triumph has given permission for countless others to do the same. And her framework for understanding vulnerability as power rather than weakness has literally saved lives. What makes Yolanda's perspective so revolutionary is how she completely inverts everything we thought we knew about strength. The strongest leaders I've ever known, she told me, weren't those who never broke. They were those who broke open, and in that breaking, created space for others to heal. This is the radical truth I want to share with you today. Resilience and vulnerability are not opposites, they are partners in the journey toward authentic power. Let that sink in for a moment. The very things we've been taught to hide, our wounds, our struggles, our moments of doubt, might actually be our greatest sources of strength. For Black women especially, this represents a seismic shift. We've been conditioned to believe that our value lies in our capacity to endure, to push through, to keep going when everyone else stops. The strong Black woman archetype hasn't just been a stereotype, it's been a prison, confining us to a narrow definition of strength that denies our full humanity. How many of us have swallowed our pain rather than appear weak? How many of us have smiled through suffering rather than ask for help? How many of us have abandoned our own needs to meet everyone else's expectations? The cost of this false strength is devastating. Depression rates among Black women continue to climb. Burnout has become normalized. Physical health problems from chronic stress manifest in our bodies. And perhaps most tragically, we pass this warped definition of strength to the next generation, perpetuating a cycle that slowly kills us. But there is another way. What if true strength isn't about never breaking? What if it's about breaking open in ways that create space for healing, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us? This is a counterintuitive truth Yolanda McGregor embodies. Vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the foundation of authentic power. Let me share three revolutionary insights from my conversation with Yolanda that completely transform how we understand strength and leadership. First, embracing vulnerability is not weakness, it's power. When we share our truth, especially the painful parts, we perform an act of courage that inspires others and creates ripples of change throughout communities. Every time a Black woman says, "This happened to me and this is how I survived it," she breaks the chains of silence that have bound generations before her. Consider the National Council of Negro Women, an organization that has been advancing Black women's economic justice and cultural legacy since 1935. When they faced devastating challenges, political violence, economic injustice, and deliberate attempts to erase Black history and culture, including the symbolic dismantling of Black Lives Matter Plaza, they didn't retreat into silence. Under Dr. Chavon, Arlene Bradley's leadership, they responded by amplifying their voices. They doubled down on advocacy while cultivating resilience through multi generational organizing that spans from 9-year-old activists to 98-year-old elders. They expanded educational and economic programs, grew their membership with younger voices, and increased their visibility in national policy discussions on equity. What makes their story so powerful isn't just what they accomplished, it's that they refused to hide the truth of Black women's experiences in America. They centered those experiences, including the painful ones, and used them as the foundation for creating transformative change. This brings me to Yolanda's second insight. The barriers Black women face are not personal failings, but systemic issues requiring collective action. The pay inequity, underrepresentation in leadership, and attempts at cultural erasure aren't problems we can solve individually. They demand solidarity, advocacy, and policy changes. Consider this shocking reality. Despite progress in other areas, Black professional women still earn just 66 cents for every dollar earned by white men. This isn't just a statistic, it's a theft of over $1 million across an average career span. This wage disparity remains entrenched even after legislative reforms, partly due to anti DEI backlash threatening hard won advances. But here again, we see the power of vulnerability in truth telling. State leaders like New York Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins have spearheaded annual awareness campaigns for Black Women's Equal Pay Day alongside policy initiatives targeting transparency and accountability. These efforts began with women being willing to share uncomfortable truths about inequality, to be vulnerable about their experiences with pay discrimination. Their willingness to speak up has produced tangible progress that benefits not just themselves, but everyone who comes after them. This leads us to Yolanda's third and perhaps most profound insight. Your story is your legacy. By owning your narrative and refusing silence around trauma or injustice, you pave the way for future generations of leaders who can build on your resilience. We're seeing this play out in boardrooms across America. In recent years, there has been an extraordinary increase in Black women securing board director positions, with numbers jumping by over 27% between 2023 and 2025, from 149 directors to 190 nationally. This didn't happen by accident. It happened because Black women refused to accept the narrative that they didn't belong in these spaces. It happened because they built networks, created affinity groups, and advocated for intentional recruitment efforts. It happened because they were willing to be the first, to be visible, to be vulnerable in spaces where they might be the only one who looked like them. And each woman who stepped into these roles created possibility models for others, showing what's possible when we refuse to be limited by others' perceptions of where we belong. Their vulnerability, their willingness to be seen, to risk rejection, to speak truth to power, created pathways that others can now walk with greater ease. This is the revolutionary power of vulnerability that Yolanda McGregor has illuminated. When we share our stories, we don't just heal ourselves. We create healing possibilities for others. When we hide our struggles, we inadvertently participate in systems that thrive on our silence. When we pretend everything is fine when it isn't, we make it harder for others to acknowledge their own challenges. When we perpetuate the myth of the strong Black woman who needs no support, no rest, no softness, we become complicit in our own exhaustion. This is why what I call the soft girl era isn't just about aesthetics or trends, it's about a spiritual, emotional, and mental recalibration. It's about letting go of hustle as identity, learning to say no without guilt, setting boundaries without apology, resting without explanation, embracing healing, wholeness, softness, and emotional honesty. It's about dropping the superwoman cape that's been weighing on our shoulders because softness is not weakness, it's a radical act of self love. So I ask you today, what would change if you saw your story not as something to hide, but as your most powerful asset? What would be possible if you embraced vulnerability not as weakness, but as the foundation of authentic leadership? How will you use your own story, not just what happened to you, but what happened through you, to break cycles of silence within your family, your business, your community? Who could be empowered if they heard what you've survived and triumphed over? I challenge you to take one step toward vulnerability today. Share one truth you've been hiding. Ask for help with one burden you've been carrying alone. Rest without apologizing for it. Set one boundary that honors your worth. Because here's the truth that Yolanda McGregor so powerfully embodies: the world doesn't need more people pretending to be strong, it needs more people brave enough to be real. It needs your voice, your truth, your story, told in your words on your terms, in service of your healing and our collective liberation. The revolution we need won't be built on false strength. It will be built on the authentic power that emerges when we have the courage to break open, to be seen, to connect through our shared humanity. And that revolution begins with you, with your story, with your voice, with your willingness to be vulnerable in a world that has taught you only to be strong. The time for silence is over. The time for breaking open has come. Thank you